Here are some of the nice guy traps that I fell into and how I got out of them and how I hope they can help you too. Welcome back to another episode of the Be Better podcast. I'm your host, Harrison Orr. I've coached almost 500 guys to help them regulate their nervous system, maximize their presence, maximize their impact so that they can be better husbands, fathers, leaders, business owners, and live to their highest potential, first and foremost for themselves, and then allowing everyone else as a byproduct to benefit from their magnificence. In this episode, I want to share with a few of the things five specifically, of the things that I got wrong as a nice guy, some of the biggest issues that I struggled with as a nice guy, and then consequently what I did about it and how I got out of it, and will forever be working on these things as most guys are. Even Dr. Robert Glover admits to being a recovering nice guy for life, and I definitely put myself in that category too. The thing that I think drove my partner fucking crazy was the amount of time she would ask what I wanted. Babe, what do you want for dinner? And I would reply with, I don't care, babe. What do you want? I don't mind. Whatever you want, babe. It's up to you. If someone, as a general rule of thumb, and this might seem like I'm preaching or I'm talking at you, but I'm also more so talking to a former version of me. If she is asking what you want, she wants to know what you think. She wants to know what you want. If she only cared about what she wanted, she wouldn't bother fucking asking. So instead of saying, I don't care, I don't know, make a fucking decision. The amount of times that we say, oh, I don't know, I don't care, I don't mind, for fear of, I don't know, maybe having a differing opinion, wanting something different to somebody else, or being maybe shut down or ridiculed for our preference, or whatever it is, whatever the underlying thing is, doesn't really matter right now. But without having an opinion, when we stand for nothing, we fall for everything, right? And our partner doesn't want someone, well, really nobody in life wants someone that can't tell you what they really think. Because think about it this way. If you had a friend, right? And I don't know about you, but I like to think that I can trust my friends to tell me the truth, not just what I want to hear. Because if I just wanted to hear what I wanted to hear, I'd just go and talk to the mirror, right? I want other people's insights so they can tell me what's not going so well, what is going so well, like their outside perspective that isn't filtered through my emotional bias and my lens and reality of the world, right? If you ask your friend what they think, and they just shoot back their best guess at what they think you want to hear. Sure, initially it might stroke your ego a little bit. You're like, oh, all chuffed because you got it right, or you heard what you wanted to hear, or you get to have your way, whatever it is. Then eventually you find out that that's not what they really think. That they aren't telling you the truth, that they're holding things back. You can't trust that person anymore. Because how can you trust someone that doesn't tell you what they really think? How can you trust someone that is supposed to be in your inner circle that they can't be honest with you? They can't tell you these things. They can't even decide what they want for fucking dinner. And so not only does that breach a trust factor in a relationship, it also becomes extremely fucking boring. Like imagine if your partner agreed with everything you said. Everything. You'd have a pretty boring existence, I think. Like there would be nothing to discuss. Every time you brought something up or question, oh yeah, I thought the same thing. Oh, yep, I think that too. And that too. And that too. That would be boring. And so what I thought as a nice guy, anything that was different, if we had differing opinions, if there was conflicting opinions or beliefs or whatever, that it would cause an argument, that it would cause a lack of trust, or she would not like me, or we would break up, or there would be this huge fight or this big deal. Because the underlying thing there as well is I didn't know how to communicate properly. if there was something that I didn't want, if she's like, oh, babe, I'd really love sushi for dinner. And I'm like, oh, I had sushi for lunch. I don't really want it twice in a day. I'd really prefer, we go get a steak or something. Then how can I say that? If I bring that up, I'm afraid that she's going to, what? Like, what's worst case that can happen from that little scenario? Probably not much. She's not going to break up over you because you don't want sushi for dinner, right? But we often think worst case scenario. So if you're someone that is still saying, I don't know, I don't care, whatever you want, it's up to you. All of those phrases that just push back the decision-making power, the decisiveness to your partner, giving them the power, giving them the control, giving them the masculine frame. It's simple, super simple. Now, a lot of people get this wrong. I fuck this up too, right? We swing way too far the other way when we're trying to change. We become very decisive and we don't allow any empathy. We don't allow any wiggle room. We go too decisive. And what I would say to that is allow yourself to be wrong. Set yourself a little task for the next, start with 24 hours even. For the next 24 hours, you are not allowed to say, I don't know. Obviously, if it's a legitimate high-end question that has high stakes involved, admit that you don't have a solution, right? If it's something very important, for sure, admit or know where your boundaries are of what you're capable of, what your knowledge and intellect is, for sure. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about things like what you want to do on the weekend, what you want to have for dinner, what you think about certain topics, just in terms of conversation. Set yourself a little boundary or a little game. You're not allowed to say, I don't know. You need to form a decision for every single thing. See how that goes. You're going to have to pause a little bit. You're going to have to think a little bit more. But it's also going to bring to your awareness how often you do not decide, how often you relinquish that power. And then the next step is starting to decide, starting to pre-handle things, and then you lead the conversation, you lead the activity or the dinner or whatever it is by things like, hey babe, I was thinking about getting sushi on the way home for dinner. How does that feel for you? You've brought up the subject of what are we going to have for dinner. You've made the decision, and then all you've asked is that confirmation. Is like, how does that feel for you? She still has the option of saying like, no, like on the flip side, oh, I had sushi for dinner. I don't really want it twice in the one day. Or she can say, that sounds amazing. Thank you. Have my usual. Right? Being decisive is not controlling. This is a frame that I massively got wrong. I used to think that it was controlling and it was being like a tyrant and all these things. Vastly different. Very, very, very different. So that's the one frame. That's the first. The second was allowing her to decide how I feel. If she came home stressed, shit, we're both stressed now. If she came home sad, oh fuck, I better be sad too because it's weird to be in a good mood if she's sad. If she comes home happy, fuck, I better pick up my step now because we're all happy, we're in a good mood, we're joking, we're playing. And I was the thermometer. She was the thermostat. I was just reacting to whatever energy she brought home, whatever energy she was. Now, some people will say like, oh, to get along with people, don't you need to mirror them and match them and all these kind of things? If she brings a certain energy home, and so like if she's happy and brings you up, that's amazing. That's like a good thing. You've got a good thing going then in a relationship if you help balance each other out, right? If someone's low and the other one can help bring them up, amazing. That's great. You guys can bounce off each other. But if she's in a chaotic mood, a venting mood, or, all over the place for whatever reason, and you start behaving the same way, you start getting reactive and don't know how to handle her storm, her chaos, her beautiful energy, then she's going to know that you can't handle her. And it's also really draining for you, being up, down, all over the place, being so reactive to everything. Instead, being the stability, being the decider of that energy. So you know the energy that you're holding, that calm, grounded presence. Maybe it's playful, like you're the one in control of that. And so, sure, you might need to mirror a little bit in terms of getting in sync with energies, mood, providing some of that empathy and things like that. Because if you're too far away from her in terms of that mood and that energy, then it's going to seem really inauthentic, and she's feel like you're not going to understand me, you're not even listening, you're not feeling me, you're not all these things. But if you can channel her energy, bring her up if she's down, if you can be calm and present when she's chaotic and venting and doing all the things, and she knows that you can handle that, she can throw whatever she wants at you, and not in a punching bag way. Okay, I need to take a side step here and frame, because one thing is super clear to me in a lot of the comments that I get on Instagram. A lot of men don't see them and their wife as being on the same team, which is fucking wild to me. The big overarching theme or grounding presence, that the glue that holds all this together, is the premise that you and your wife are on the same team. If you guys are not on the same team, you're not working towards the same goal, you're not trying to make each other better, you're not working towards all this kind of thing, you genuinely want the worst for each other, none of this will make sense. None of this will land, and you probably shouldn't be together, right? And it's funny because the people that I see make those comments don't look like they're from a nationality or a race where they have arranged marriages. So you are well in your power to fucking leave if you think your wife or your partner is a burden on your life. Caveat, right? So knowing that you want the best for each other, it makes it a lot easier to see that side of the story, that level of understanding. And this then trickles down into being a father, because if our kids bring us a problem, a situation, maybe they messed up, and we go off the deep end, lose our shit, we punish them, we do like absolute chaos. How likely do you think they are to bring another problem to us? How likely are they going to want to be that honest with us again when that wrath is what they just faced for being honest and doing what they thought they should do by sharing that with their father? Not fucking very. Right? They are not going to, because they're going to think, well, last time I was honest, last time I shared something with dad, he lost it. I don't want to have that happen again. I don't want to be punished. I don't want to have that lecture. I don't want that experience again. So they'll either tell you a version of the story or just completely not tell you at all. And now you've got a distant relationship with your child because they don't feel they can share something because you're not a safe space. Now, it is not your job to make someone feel safe, make someone feel certain, because that's an inside job, even for you. It's something that you create in yourself. But as men, we create it for ourselves, and then we create the space around us for others to step in and partake in that safety, that certainty. So when we create that space, it's when they bring that to us that we can stay grounded. They know that they can tell us whatever happened, be brutally honest with what happened, no matter how bad the mess up, no matter what happened, and know that, cool, dad's going to be able to handle it. He's going to stay calm. He's still going to love me. He's not going anywhere. He's not going to abandon me. Because if you've lost your shit, and it's the same with your partner, if you've lost your shit or you've reacted that way in the past, there's that subconscious of her part of her mind that's going to be like, cool, he says be honest with him, but don't be that honest. So just tell him, find the line where you can technically you were honest, but not so much that he lost his shit and created World War III. And so that comes from experience, right? So every time they will tell you things, it's our job to hold that, to prove that we can be the safe space. Number 3, listening to her words, not her feelings. And talking to a lot of guys in my space at the moment, both clients and new guys that have coming to the space through the content and everything, is the amount of men, and this is again me talking to me, that will listen to what their partner says and address what their partner says. Right? They will either get defensive, or they will try to disprove, or they will argue, or they will find a solution for, or an answer to, or a comeback, instead of listening to what his partner is actually trying to communicate. So feminine are not as logical as the masculine. So we talk in logic. We communicate in logic. They communicate in feeling. So every time you ask your wife to just say what you really think, say what you really mean, don't beat around the bush, all these kind of things, you're asking her to be more masculine. You're asking her to articulate in a way that you understand, because you do not have the ability to understand what she is feeling. That is a you problem, not a her problem. Asking her to say what she means, asking her to, do all these things, speak the way that you speak, is basically saying, I can't understand you as a woman, so be more like a man. Is that what you really want? I don't know about you, but it's not. And that was extremely hard for me to hear. That was extremely hard for me to wrap my head around. Like, what do you mean? Like, isn't that like just human level, adult level intelligence to talk like that? Like, it was crazy to me that it was so different. And now I started to understand a little bit more the whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus, that type polarity. And not to say that one is better than the other, one is wrong or one is right, but they're different in such beautiful ways. Because if we were all logic and no feeling, then we may as well be robots. And if they're all feeling with no logic, then we wouldn't have the infrastructure and all the things that we do in this beautiful planet right now, and the opportunities, right? So, yin and yang type vibes. So instead of asking our wife or partner or the feminine to be more manly, how about we learn to listen, feel what they are trying to communicate? Because when we can unlock that, when we can get past the words into what they're really feeling, you will be able to come to a level of understanding, a level of connection and depth that you didn't even think was possible before. Getting to the point where you can listen between the words, read between the lines. She's not really mad about this. She's not really mad that I was home 45 minutes late. She's mad because I haven't been giving her attention lately, because she's feeling unloved, because I haven't been doing so much around the house, so she feels like she's doing this all on her own. That, addressing that, speaking into that, will crack open so much more than fighting her and trying to justify why you were home 30 minutes late. Because it's not the surface level. Like, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's always something underneath it. And so when our partner is like, quote unquote, nagging that we haven't done something, a lot of the time, yes, they want the thing done, but they also, more so, want a man that they can trust to do what he said he would. They don't like having to repeat them. I don't know anyone, male or female, that likes having to repeat themselves to the same person. Hey, you said you did this, why hasn't it been done? Hey, you said this, why hasn't it been done? If that was an employee, you would have fucking fired them by now, right? So instead of blaming them, look at it like, well, I said I would do it and I haven't done it. So that's fair. When we start to think from that, when I've started to think from that frame, it has made me so much more aware of the things that I commit to, the timelines I commit to them within, and also allowing myself to say no. Because if I can say, oh, that's something I'm going to put off, I'm not going to want to do from the start, if I can say, you know what, that's not something I'm going to commit to, I don't want to do that, But if it's something as a solution or it's something that needs to get done, like around the house, awesome. Outsource it. Pay someone else to do it, get it else done. Sort it in a way that you don't have to do it, but the job gets done. But again, that communication piece, asking better questions, listening, and also seeking to understand. Especially as a nice guy, I always used to feel that if someone was giving me feedback or critiquing something or saying that I hadn't done something or pulling me up on something, all those things, I would take it personally. I would feel like they were attacking me. I would feel like I'm not good enough and get defensive. And that perfectly leads me into my fourth point, is getting defensive or reactive when she would bring those things up. I would deflect. I would even argue. Or not really argue, but I would deflect it. I would justify it. Or just, agree and nod and say nothing, but like inside be just either anxious and stressed because I thought it was about to go into an argument. So I would shut down and just nod and yes, hoping it would just fizzle out and go away, or have this frustration and anger building inside me that I had to try and control and not let it explode. All because I couldn't and hadn't owned these things yet. The reason that these things were, that I was getting defensive, that I was getting triggered, that I was getting this reaction, this emotional, internal, physical reaction from, is because there was an element of truth to it. Because, in fact, I hadn't done what she was saying that I hadn't done. She was right. That there was, something that I hadn't owned about a part of me, a trait, something that I was doing, or there was an incongruency in who I thought I was or who I communicated that I was compared to my actions. And so one of the biggest lessons, one of the biggest steps that's helped me go through this nice guy, masculine, all the words journey is the ownership of the traits. And when we can own all those traits, all the traits about us, it makes it a lot harder for us to get triggered. Like, you definitely find things that still trigger you because you're human. That's part of the package. But it makes it a lot easier to control them. And so I know if you've been in the self-development space for a while, then you've probably seen people talk about this in reference to 8 Mile, the Eminem movie, right? In the last battle scene, he chokes the first round, comes out in the second round, and then just like owns everything. He's like, yeah, I live in a trailer. Yeah, my mate's a pedo. Yeah, he shot himself in the foot. Yeah, like all these kind of things, whatever. And then the guy's got nothing because he owned every single thing. And so if there's something that triggers you, being able to stop for a second, breathe, because most people forget to breathe when they're in that fight or flight response, just breathe. And then ask yourself, where is it true? Where is this true? And to be frank, some of these things may not even be true for you, but the person that is saying these things, it may be true for them. It may be true for them based on their reality, what they classify as being aggressive, what they classify as being a narcissist, like their definition of these labels that they're throwing at you, it might be true for them. And so getting angry, trying to disprove their reality is a surefire way to end up in a fight, to end up in an argument, to not have a good time, and most importantly, not understand each other in the slightest. But when we can understand and see it from their perspective, like, I can totally understand how you would come to that conclusion, how my actions or those words or what I did would come across as aggressive or as being like that. I can totally see that. That wasn't my intention, and I'm sorry that it came across that way, but that's not how I meant it. But I can totally see how that's true for you. In that moment, I haven't questioned, I haven't negated, I haven't disproved or argued her reality at all. Because then we can understand. But that takes a level of like ownership. And it also, I want to go on a side tangent here because I gave one of my clients a few weeks ago this task because he wanted to own a few things because there were things at home that were still triggering him. And there's a list of 142 human traits, and I've got it in a spreadsheet. And I sent it to him. And I was like, mate, I want you to go through these and own every single one. Next to each one, you're going to write a time that you can remember in which that trait was true. So go back through your history of your life. When have you been aggressive? When have you been belittling? When have you been adventurous? When have you been caring? When have you been like all these things? And so he came back the week later and he was like, mate, I did these, like the good ones were super easy. I found them, enjoyable to relive those moments. And I found that, got all the warm and fuzzies. But the bad ones I really struggled to find. And I had to pull him up on that because like, what do you mean the bad ones? And he's like, oh, like the aggression and the narcissism and the like those things, right? The angry, the frustrated. And I was like, why are they bad? What makes them bad? Because none of those traits are bad. I keep using the aggression one as an example because I feel like that's easy to relate to for most people and easy to understand what they would classify as aggression and things like that, right? And so I said, these traits on their own are not bad. It's the context in which they are used, which may not be ideal. So it's all contextual, right? I'm very attuned to like the context of things now because I've got my 2-year-old son who I'm watching do a lot of things. And it's funny seeing the context of like, he'll do something which is totally fine in one setting, but in another, like not very. So it's funny how they don't learn that, but some adults are the same, right? Anyway, aggression, right? Is it justified or is it a good use of the tool aggression to be aggressive towards your wife when she reminds you, hey, did you bring the milk on your way? Did you get the milk on your way home? And you say no and you blow up and you get frustrated and you go hard. Probably not. Probably not a great use of aggression. On the flip side, would it be helpful to be aggressive if someone is threatening your wife and kids? Someone's threatening your physical safety and you need to be aggressive to stop them, to disarm them, to keep your family safe. Fucking oath, right? And so that was a big penny drop for me as I was thinking that. Think these traits were bad. You don't want to be angry. You don't want to be aggressive. You don't want to be a threat or a weapon, or you don't want to be any of these things. You want to bury that because that's not safe. That's not how good men are. Then I had a mentor explain to me that being able to use those things is what makes someone a controlled man. It's also what makes someone a dangerous man. Because being able to use those tools, to use those traits at the right time, have them under his control and only use them when absolutely necessary is what makes him a controlled and masculine man. A nice guy can't control a lot of that stuff, right? Aggression is bad because we don't know how to control it. We haven't channeled it enough. And so when it does come out, it's unjust and in the wrong context. So of course we would think it's bad. And so all these traits and these emotions and everything, they're all just tools. Learning how to hone them and use them at the right time, the right place, the right context is then what transition you into a mature, masculine, embodied man. And even with the feminine, like with your partner, again, I used to think that she wanted me to be safe. She didn't want me to be harmful. She didn't want to be want me to be angry or violent or any of those things. But there's a part of her that wants to know that I can be. Not towards her, of course, But she wants to know, there's a part of her feminine psyche that wants to know that if I'm in danger, my man will fuck shit up to protect me. And so it's the spectrum as well. Again, having it under control. She knows that I've got it under control. And so that wrath, that violence, that aggression will never be directed at her, to my son, to my family, with anyone within my household. But I have it as a tool to protect us. Think about how safe that would make her feel. To know that I've got it as a tool. It's under control, so it's not coming their way, but I can use it against anyone else who threatens us or puts us in harm's way. Right now, a lot of guys and a lot of nice guys let that come out in uncontrolled spurts and moments, in those arguments with their partner or their kids. And that's why they don't feel safe. Last one, fifth one, which sums up a lot of these as it is, but I'll go into it anyway. Basically, fuck all boundaries and communication skills. So being a yes man, being a people pleaser, saying yes to not just my partner, but everyone else because I didn't know how to say no, because I thought I would let them down, because I thought that if I didn't say yes, they would not like me, they would never invite me again, they wouldn't be a client, or they wouldn't continue to pay me money, or they wouldn't give me what I want, or there was some underlying thing that I thought would happen if I said no, if I set a boundary. And because I didn't know how to set boundaries, I said yes, because I didn't know how to communicate what I wanted. Because for me, I didn't even know what my boundaries were. I didn't know what that meant to have a boundary. I was like, what's the difference between a boundary and a threat? Like, I heard some people say like, oh, this is, well, if this happens, then that happens, I just won't do it. And like, well, if you do this, then I'll do that. And I was like, that sounds like a threat. That doesn't sound like useful communication. It doesn't sound like a path I really want to go. And I think it was Mel Robbins was talking about boundaries, and I really like this description, this way of framing. And she said, a boundary is something that you communicate that requires the other person to do nothing at all. Nothing at all. And so a simple one is, if you continue to talk to me like that, I will not respond. Right? And that's not just to your partner, that's to anyone. If you continue to talk to me like that, with that level of disrespect, with that energy, I will not respond. Clear frame, clear intention, clear boundary. There is no threat. That's, if you do this, then I'm going to do this. There's none of that. It's completely grounded. I'm sure of what I will tolerate, and I know where that boundary is, and I've now communicated that. So now you're aware of my boundary, and if you overstep that, then that is the consequence, which is I will not respond. Having those boundaries. And to be fair, when I first learnt about these and I was still very deep in the nice guy scenario trying to come out of that, I went way too far the other way. And would set all these boundaries and things up, but forgot the teeny tiny part of communicating them to other people. And so when I just started saying no to everything and anyone that I didn't want to do anything, like saying no to everything and putting myself first and having all these boundaries and completely forgetting to actually be, first of all, grounded in what I did communicate. And then second of all, actually communicate the changes and the boundaries and all these things. People just thought I was being a dick. People just thought I was rude, I was stressed out, even to go as far as saying I was arrogant, which to me cut me the most, because for years I was shy, I was introverted, I was all those things because I was so concerned about being classed as arrogant that I went so far the other way. When I was younger, I would confuse arrogance and confidence, and I was like, I don't want to be associated with any of those labels, so I'm going to go so far the other way. And then to find out all about this stuff, swing too far back, and then be called arrogant was like next level confusion for my mind. And so being able to set those boundaries, being able to communicate what I want, what I feel, what I think with I statements, I think has been a big one as well. Very much used to be, okay, well, I'm going to tell her what I think. Well, when you do this, it makes me feel like this. Cool. I've just blamed that person for my entire scenario and put them at fault. How open are they going to be to listen to anything else I have to say? Probably not very. They're probably going to get defensive and then come back. And at the end of the day, it's my responsibility, right? Our emotions, our state, our responsibility. So we start with I statements. I feel this way. When this happens, I feel this way. There's no blame. There's nothing being pushed out to anybody else. It's purely I statements. It's my reality. That has been a game changer in being able to express those things, what's on my heart, what I'm feeling, where I'm at, and actually make it a constructive conversation as opposed to tit for tat. Well, you do this and makes me feel like that. Yeah, well, you did this and that made me do this and da da da. And it's like, oh my God, it's not going anywhere positive. So those communication skills, those boundaries as well. But the massive underlying pillar that made any of these changes possible, because all of these are very reactive states, right? Very reactive default settings, essentially, because we've been functioning off that way for so long. The biggest pillar that made the biggest change, and I even asked my wife this the other day, I was like, I've changed pretty significantly over the last 5 years. Like, what do you think has been the biggest pillar, the biggest catalyst of this change? And she's like, when you started looking after your nervous system. She's like, when you started looking after your nervous system, you were sleeping better, you were drinking less coffee, you were like putting more effort into your mental health and your mindfulness and all these things and being more present. That was when you had the biggest shift. That's when you were able to not get so reactive and fly off the handle, when you weren't anxious and self-conscious all the time, when you weren't irritable and needy and jealous and like all the things. And from that place, like I was very much in that fight or flight response. From looking after my nervous system to making all those changes, when these things are now were brought into my attention, I was able to observe what was going on a lot more rather than just jump into reactive mode, and then slowly start to change how I would handle the situation. Instead of instantly getting defensive or instantly saying, oh, I don't know, what do you want? Just deflecting it back. Slowing things down, not being afraid to take a second to breathe, decide how I want to respond and handle it that way. And that is what I believe is the biggest underlying thing that a lot of guys miss. A lot of guys will read No More Mr. Nice Guy, listen to the podcast, listen to all the other content, and then know of these things, try to implement them, but it still comes across as being aggressive. It still comes across as passive aggressive. They still react, or they respond with nasty sarcasm or other things that are just not something a mature, regulated man would do. Because when we're regulated, when we're calm, when we're in that parasympathetic nervous system, our brain is much more malleable. We can learn, we can adjust, we can pivot, we can flow, as opposed to being in fight or flight. We're so rigid, we're not able to change, we just respond the same way as we did last time, every single time. And when that pattern is the one we're trying to break, it becomes extremely hard when we're stuck in that fight or flight response. When we've got a fried nervous system, we're stuck in a dysregulated nervous system. And so I'm going to cut it off there. That's almost 40 minutes of these 5 traits. Like I said, it could go on for ages with these. But if this has been helpful, if you're not already a part of the 90-second email club where I deliver emails every couple of days, digestible in less than 90 seconds to help reframe a lot of these beliefs, give you some action items to help slowly start to change the way that we think, change the way we behave, and ultimately step out of this nice guy and into that mature, masculine, grounded presence and man that we want to be. If you're not already in that club, I'll drop the link in the show notes so you can go check that out. Otherwise, if anything of this hit home, I'd love to hear your experience in any of this. So reach out to me on Instagram, The Elite Father. on Instagram, all one word, no dots or anything like that. And I'll see you there.